Hi there, traders. This is Brad Gilbert with the Daily Market Insight for Wednesday, the 7th of June. All right, now as we come into the Asian market, okay, what do we know today that we didn't know yesterday? That's what you really need to be focusing on. Now, I've just been reading through the SEC's sued Coinbase and Binance, okay, not registering as exchanges. That hasn't really done anything to the price of the cryptos for that matter. It's, in fact, I think Bitcoin's gone up about $2,000. All right, now let's just have a look. Now, we're sort of almost, I'll show you the charts here in a second, but we're in a stage where the market is sort of digesting everything that's happened, right? The US debt ceiling's come and gone. Non-farm payrolls have come and gone. The RBA raised rates, which was slightly on the cards, but as it turns out, that may be a good thing. And I'll come into that in a minute because that's going to set us up for potentially good trades on Aussie and the Aussie crosses with the upcoming data. But what are we looking at mainly? Well, US stocks and end up as Fed CPI loom large next week, right? So the market is already switching over to the bigger events, right? The CPI next week, obviously massive for the Fed, massive for the global markets, and that's where everyone's attention will be. Now, just having a look here on sort of the main sort of data page, I guess. You can see here the US equity markets fractionally up, right? If anything, they're just in the green or blue at this point. The US equity futures slightly up. Have we got a risk on, risk off day? Well, maybe slightly. Euro, sterling, Aussie, Kiwi look like they're just poking their heads up and the dollar just down. But don't forget, the clocks have just changed over. We're talking 1 or 2 points at this stage. So it's very hard to sort of say at this point. The cryptos did like the positive equity markets. As I said, the SEC ripping into Binance and Coinbase hasn't really done much for the cryptos. In fact, they've gone up, and we're seeing a bit of a positive outcome here. You'd expect with the US equities going up, a slightly up day for Asian and European equities, if anything, and also a little bit of a reprieve here on the commodities there as well. Now, let me just show you the charts here because this is where it sort of gets a little bit interesting. The main parts here, I'm just sort of looking across the board. Well, the dollar index, okay, just doing its thing. Euro in a nice downtrend now. I'm starting to get a bit more confidence around getting short euro, right? Obviously, the CPI numbers next week in the US, massive for the euro, right, as an instrument. And a lot of these pairs. Gold just sitting on support. It's almost like the market doesn't know where we're going from here. We're like waiting for the next event. Oil, even after the Saudis said they were going to cut supply, popped up. Now we're back in the middle of the range. If anything, it still looks like to me remaining under pressure. The equity markets, well, the NASDAQ really holding the momentum here at this point, and the S&P and Dow Jones sort of just hanging in there as well. And there's the crypto sort of bouncing back. Now, when you look at the currency markets, it's not obviously too dissimilar. We are waiting for the key events. Now, yesterday's surprise interest rate hike, I mean, 33% thought they were going to raise rates. I mean, it popped up about 20, 25 points, 40 points overall on the day. And it sort of held onto those gains, right? We're sort of waiting to see, okay, what goes on from here, right? So that's the main part of it. Euro and sterling still sort of doing their own thing. A little bit of pressure on the downside. This trend line here on euro is very weak anyway. So it looks like things have settled down on sterling and also Kiwi for that matter. And obviously dollar index, dollar yen, dollar Swiss for that matter, a little stop loss run there on dollar Swiss. And dollar CAD is the odd one out, right? So that's where we are just at the moment. It's, it's sort of basically everything's in the balance, right? We're looking for areas where we know where direction is and what's happening. Now, this sort of brings me over to what we're going to look forward to today to really work out, where should our attention be? Well, we've got the RBA Governor Lowe speaking. Okay, now he said his piece yesterday. And if we have a quick look at the statement, no, not really dissimilar to the previous month, except they did raise rates and some further tightening may be warranted. They're going to keep an eye on the markets. But basically, to me, the very start of this statement looks like they're trying to get ahead of the curve, which is a positive thing. And, I think they are suggesting that, we are at the top, right? So if you're at the top, there's only one way to go, and that's down. So we're watching the data now on the Aussie dollar, because any sort of weakness, especially on the top tier numbers, will implicate no more rate hikes and weaker inflation. So coming into that, we've got some GDP numbers here in Australia, right? And I've been saying to you even yesterday that the commodity prices have been getting hammered. And the Aussie, well, it's a commodity currency. So that could be a very interesting number here. Consensus 0.3, 2.4 year on year. I can potentially see some weaker numbers here. And that may be the first signs of, I know they've raised rates, but this is the next big number. It could just tell us that, already the Australian economy is already suffering, and they may have gone one step too much. So weak numbers here could see, the Aussie sort of lean to the downside at the very least. Now, as we come through the rest of the day here, you get the Halifax House Price Index. Okay, it's a big sort of number. I think I had a home loan with Halifax back in the 90s in London. So it's a bit of a respected number. Then you go on sort of through the bits and pieces here. There's a few ECB punters talking. You've got the balance of trade figures there out of Canada. But the key event will be the Bank of Canada interest rate decision, right? Once again, giving us a little bit more direction on dollar CAD. Now, with that, just to give you a little bit of a heads up on what we're looking for. So just on the charts. So when I see a central bank announcement, it's not like, okay, great, I'm going to trade the change. There's no change in rates expected. But as we saw with the Aussie, you know what, anything's possible. We do have a trend line here pretty much coming into play on the dollar, on dollar CAD. But this is where a little bit of experience looking at the crosses can pay some dividends. Now, on the crosses, if anything, I think dollar CAD looks like the best one. So if they potentially raise rates, well, obviously dollar CAD would head lower. Looking at the rest of them, I've overlaid oil here across a bunch of these charts. Now, to get the full sort of impact, if I widen these out, you can sort of get a little bit closer price comparisons, what's happening with oil and dollar CAD. And you can see clearly here on the CAD against the dollar, you know what, there's that move down in dollar CAD. It sort of comes into play, comes out of play. Aussie dollar, well, not so much. Kiwi, not so much. If I just bring my mouse across, but look closely at Euro CAD, you can see at certain times it is very influential. Obviously, that's the CAD side of the equation. Euro being weak as well. So, but you can see here how this last part of the move has separated, right? It's moved away from what it was doing. Same with sort of sterling CAD. Okay, you can sort of see very close relationships there between the CAD crosses and oil. Obviously, if I just get rid of those, the oil trade, okay, so we're looking specifically at CAD yen. You can see here exactly what's happening, and a little bit of discombobulation here around the sort of pricing as well, but some sort of relationships there. So to me, it's not like, one of those ones where I'm sort of like dripping and going, oh my God, this is amazing. This is so like in line. There's been a bit of discombobulation on CAD yen. That's probably because a lot of the news that's coming out is sort of artificial, right? Or manipulated, like the Saudis saying they're going to restrict supply. But so not really that easy across the board. If anything, as I was saying, I think dollar CAD is probably the trade. And if you're looking for a sort of a surprise move, well, maybe a interest rate hike, but you can expect the Bank of Canada won't sort of do it just for the sake of it. We have a trend line here in play. It's also in play on the dailies. You know what? It's got room to move on the weeklies and monthlies. So these are the charts. So you think, okay, a move down. What would give me a move down? Well, an increase in interest rates or a very strong statement, right? That's what you could be looking for with the Bank of Canada decision. I think dollar CAD is the trade. And that's pretty much all we've got just at the moment, guys. It's one of those things, you can't push the market to move, right? There's a calendar, and you'd be surprised. The guys at the bank sort of sit there. They don't sort of sit there frothing over the markets each week. There's usually one key focus throughout the week, which they really focus on. Outside of that, they're just sort of having a flick through the calendars, wondering what's going to line up with good technical setups or direction in the markets. and then we can go from there. But at the moment, we don't have much, right? Come Friday, we are going to have the Canadian employment numbers, and that lines up perfectly with the obviously the Bank of Canada today as well. And don't forget, just have a look at the while we're there, have a look at the crude stock numbers coming out in the US. Right, it could put further pressure on the oil prices if there's any significant change there as well. All right, and then that's all we can do at the moment. Sit tight and wait. You sort of go down through your calendar, you'll find that US CPI number next week, and that's where the real focus is. In between now and then, it's just about adding some cash to your account, right? Nothing big. Don't go mad. This is a time to be patient, disciplined, and controlled. If you can tap some extra cash into your account, that's great. But what you don't want to do is put a big hole in your account. Okay, that's like the worst thing you could do. And don't forget, jump on the Discord there. You can actually jump in and join the conversation, whether you're one of our funded traders or just get in the general chat. There's plenty to learn and pick up. All right, guys, have a good one. All the best. Cheerio.